Hello, I'm Brian Fagan, and I'm an archaeologist, and my specialty is the prehistory of humankind, the subject of this course. This first lecture is kind of an introduction to this extraordinarily large subject. And I'm going to begin by stressing that this course is a narrative story of world prehistory, a human history before written records, based on scientific evidence. Once I've made this point, I'm going to summarize the organization of the course into 6 parts, beginning with human origins and the archaic world, then describing the emergence and spread of modern humans, the beginnings of food production, that's agriculture and animal domestication, and then the emergence of the world's first pre-industrial civilizations. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the pervasive issues of the course, which include emerging human biological and cultural diversity, as well as our similarities, the importance of climate and environmental change, and the importance of considering prehistory as a chronicle not just of archaeological sites, but of people living their daily lives. And also, I'm going to stress the importance of the intangible beliefs of the ancients to the understanding of human prehistory and ultimately ourselves. The prehistory of humankind describes over 2.5 million years of the human past. It actually begins 6 million years ago, with our origins among the apes in eastern Africa. And from here, we cover an enormous span of time, up to the appearance of literate urban civilization in southwestern Asia some 5,000 years ago. And I'll also describe the early civilizations which developed in Asia and the Americas, ending our story with the Spanish conquest of Mexico and Peru. This course is a story. It's a narrative of prehistoric times, of thousands upon thousands of years of pre-literate history. A story that could only be told fairly recently, because we simply didn't know enough about the archaeological record in various parts of the world. The story is still incomplete, but at least we can give you a preliminary account. This is a course about world prehistory, the study of the human past on a global level, not just from the perspective of Europe or the Americas or even Asia, but from a global perspective. We give, as much as possible, equal time to all parts of the world in this course. We couldn't do this a couple of generations ago. It was only made possible by the development of a remarkable dating technique, radiocarbon dating, after World War II. Now, the dating methods used in this course are described in an appendix to the course guide. If you want to know more about them, you should consult the guide. Another phenomenon has also added to our knowledge of human prehistory in recent years. That is a massive explosion of the number of archaeologists in the world. Before World War II, there were probably 100 to 150 archaeologists scattered around the world. Now, there are thousands. The result has been a great expansion of archaeological research into many hitherto unexplored parts of the world since the 1950s. Many portions of Eurasia, parts of China, Southeast Asia, tropical Africa. We now know infinitely more about how humans populated the world, how they came into being, and how they developed their extraordinary cultural and biological diversity, much more than we did even a generation ago. How do we tell this story? What evidence do we use for it? The word prehistory, which to some people is a rather loaded expression, means the history of humankind before the advent of written records. We do not have archives, we don't have diaries of individuals, we do not have political files and speeches to work with. We only have evidence from other sources. Prehistory, history before written records. The term was invented by a French archaeologist back at the beginning of the 19th century. But it's stuck in the literature and is used to this day. It's a convenient label. The prehistory of humankind, the study of people before writing, is based on innumerable academic disciplines. During the course of the next 36 lectures, we will draw on archaeology, oral history, that's history transmitted from one generation to the next by word of mouth. We will draw even on the incomplete written records of the early civilizations. We will draw on biology, zoology, and innumerable other scientific disciplines and studies. I want to stress that here we are not concerned with myth and legend or biblical wit. This is a narrative based on science and on scientific research, much of it conducted in the last 30 years, and much of it cutting edge, very new. This is something which is rapidly turning our knowledge of the remote human past into something vibrant and living. We're beginning to find that people have behaved in remarkably diverse ways over the last 2.5 million years. This, then, is a human prehistory constructed from scientific research. It is not an account of the past based on fantasy, unsubstantiated legend, or science fiction, none of which have any place in our story. I'm not going to tell you tales of the lost continent of Atlantis, or of ancient space people colonizing Earth thousands of years ago. These are simplistic formulations by people who want a good story and don't necessarily have the patience to contemplate the painstaking, slow-moving pace of science. This is a story based on science. But this science has its own distinctive perspective. We Westerners tend to think of the past in linear terms. Why? Because our watches chronicle the passing of time as our calendars do. We have a linear view of human history. And as a result, Western science has constructed a linear view of the last 2.5 million years of human prehistory. It's constructed from a jigsaw puzzle of excavations, archaeological surveys, and scientific dating methods. This linear chronology, and this course, for much of it, is organized in a linear fashion, is the framework for our story. Every episode here begins at the beginning and goes through time, from the earlier to the later. This linear framework is very different from the cyclical view of time, which many ancient and traditional societies possess or possessed. These cyclical versions are often driven by different verities. The endless passage of the seasons. Spring, the period of growth and rebirth. The summer, when the plants grow to maturity. The fall, the rich time of harvest. And then winter, the quiescent time, the time of death. And this endless cyclical passage of time, of the seasons, is intimately associated in the minds of many societies with the age-old cycles of humanity: birth, youth, adulthood, old age, and death. The endless cycle of humanity. The expectation that life will continue after you have gone through the cycle of life, and that your successors and descendants will enjoy the same life as you have and was enjoyed by your ancestors. Many traditional societies find a linear view of the past somewhat threatening. This course is offered with respect as a scientific account of what happened in human prehistory and why. The cyclical views of the past offer perspectives into the world views of individual societies, and occasionally in the later part of the course we will refer to these cyclical visions. But our course is based on a linear perspective and has a perspective internationally far larger than the relatively narrow cyclical world views of traditional societies. The prehistory of humankind is divided into 6 parts. They coincide with major developments in prehistoric times. Part 1, Beginnings, describes the archaic world of the first humans. Here we discuss the controversial subject of human origins in East Africa, the fossil evidence for human evolution, the archaeological sites, and the theories which surround the exact nature of early human behavior. Were we more ape-like? Were we more human? The debate continues to rage. Then we discuss the evolution of later, more advanced humans and their simple hunter-gatherer societies, chronicling their spread over the Old World, but not over the Americas, after 2 million years ago. Part 1 ends with the archaic forms of Homo sapiens, the immediate predecessors of modern humans. The Europeans, we stress particularly here the European Neanderthals of 100,000 to 30,000 years ago. Part 2